welcome back to the show. So before the break, we were discussing body images specifically with women, and now we have a guest in the studio, Chantal Haddad from the Kettering Memorial Hospital Center. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi. It's nice to be here.
So continuing our discussion kind of with, we left off with how the media portrays women. Do you have any take on that?
Well, what I was listening to you guys talking before, and what I was thinking that's sort of important to mention is that what we see in the media is not always how people really look. You know, they touch up images a lot. So, airbrush and whatnot. So they can make people look really, really different to what they really look. Sort of like you could do on Photoshop. I guess you could, change the enhance whatever you want, skin tone, higher cheekbones, anything you want, So just to keep that in mind that, there's a lot of touching up going on there too. It's not just the way people look.
And what do you think that, that whether it's real people or just doing those airbrushing, enhancing, what do you think the effects are on, youth's eating habits?
Well, it really depends on the person, but especially younger adolescents could be very impressionable, and they could be looking at, like you were saying, looking at some of the images portrayed in the media and looking at that as an ideal. So then the other problem is that we have a lot of advertising that goes into all kinds of products to enhance your appearance. So when you're always listening to those ads, you might ask yourself the question, do I need that? Or, it might make you a little bit self-conscious or question yourself. So it could lead to people trying to change the way they look, whether it's by eating or by other means, by exercising or plastic surgery or whatever, different products. But and the media ads also really play on people's insecurities. They go to really try to find what people might be insecure about, and then they go for that. So it's important to be aware of that the media is there to, ads are there to sell you a product, and you have to really think about that, how that's affecting you, how you take those messages, realize that they're always trying to sell you something.
So if the media finally sold me and told me that I needed to, that I really I needed to maybe start dieting, per se, so that I can become, better looking, what are some of the consequences that come along with dieting and skipping meals?
Okay. Well, if, dieting is, as we know, unfortunately, all too common. There's diet books out there, there's diet programs, there's endless things out there that supposedly are going to help people lose weight. So the best way to lose weight, if you really, really, think that that's where you want to go, it's through very slow and moderate changes. Unfortunately, people want the quick fix, right? So when they go on
the liposuction.
Yeah. So when you go on a diet as such, where you're really restricting your food intake, there are lots of dangers associated with that. The first one is to your own, mental health, your own psyche, because diets are depressing, because most of the time it works for a while, but then it ends up being a failure. You end up putting the weight back on, and people end up putting on even more weight. So when you keep doing that, you're like, oh, it didn't work, and so it's kind of depressing. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. But the other thing is that when you lose weight rapidly, you lose muscle mass, you lose water. You don't have the good ability to concentrate. You don't have a good energy level, so you're not doing any good for your body. And the other thing is that your body goes into sort of a starvation mode. So it starts to try to preserve energy. And when it does that, your body slows down, your metabolism slows down. So then it makes it even harder to lose weight. So that's how sometimes people end up gaining weight. And then the other thing is that when you feel very deprived, when you're not eating what you want or when you want, you remember that in your mind, and then when you do see food, you might have a tendency to overeat or binge. Yeah. So, dieting is really not the way to go.
So what do you think about those diets that, they're so bizarre, like only blue cheese and like bean salad? Like
Yeah.
what do you think of those as a nutritionist?
Yeah, it's bizarre. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. We need all kinds of foods. We need a variety of food to be healthy. And as soon as you see a diet that's eliminating like a whole big food group, there's something wrong with that. That's like a clear flag.
When we talk about food, I guess and dieting, there's also that extreme end of like eating disorders and what you mentioned off air, but disorder eating. Can you explain those a bit?
Yeah. So there's disordered eating is something that's quite common, and it's I'll just try and show you the difference between normal eating, let's say, and disordered eating. It's not really about what you eat, but it's how you feel and how you think about what you eat. So normal eating would be you eat when you're hungry, you stop eating when you're getting full, and you're good with it. You don't feel guilty, you don't feel strange, you don't feel that you should or shouldn't or anything like that. You're not trying to control weight. You're just eating, responding to your body. You're hungry, you eat. You're not hungry, you stop. And from day to day, it's very normal that from day to day your eating will vary. So some days you eat more, some days you eat less. That's normal. That's like your body will ask you for more food or less on different days. So disordered eating is when you don't feel really comfortable with your eating. You start to have sort of strange eating behaviors. If you're always trying to control your weight or always depriving yourself of things that you feel like eating, but you won't eat it because you think it's not good for you, or you'll eat it and then you'll feel guilty. That's the beginning of disordered eating. So I'm sure when I mentioned that, you know a lot of people who do that all the time, who are always feeling guilty about what they eat and always trying to deprive themselves of this or that, or trying to be overly controlling of their food. So you asked also about eating disorders. Now that's the extreme, when someone really feels that they need to control, that they're out of control with their eating, and they need to really do something. So sometimes people go to an extreme, and I'm sure you've heard of different eating disorders like anorexia and bulimia. There's also binge eating disorder and compulsive overeating. Those are all recognized eating disorders. And what's important to understand is that an eating disorder is really a complex psychological condition. It's a clinical condition. So if someone has a full-blown eating disorder, they need real professional help from a doctor, a psychologist, and it can take many, many years to recover. And there's a lot of, it's not only about eating. There's always much more going on there. Self-esteem, there could be other psychological issues. Sometimes depression or anxiety are all linked to eating disorders.
So if I met, or if I have a friend or I know someone who I think has an eating disorder, how can I help them? Like, is there anything in particular that I can do? I know you said they need, clinical help if it's that bad, but is there anything that I can do to help them?
The one thing that I think every single person can do is to realize that whether you're a parent or whether you're a friend or whether you're, even as someone's child, you're always a role model for people around you. So you could always, the things you say and the things you do can always be helpful to another person. So if you see someone, if you notice the way they criticize themselves or their body, and you can try and say positive things, and you can be a role model by being positive about your own self. Those are little things that help. But if you really feel that the person has a serious problem, like a full-out eating disorder, and you're very concerned for their health, you need to try and bring it up. And bring it up and try to, don't talk about the person, but talk about what you noticed. I noticed that, you're eating like this,
or every time after a meal, I noticed that you kind of go to the bathroom and after every meal. Yeah. I know it's a very like TV kind of situation, but it happens though.
Oh, it happens, yeah. And is everything okay with you? And be ready for denial. Most people will deny it, and most people will not want help. But as a friend, the thing to do is to be there for that person and to bring it up again, you know, if you need to, like, just give them time. And the most important thing is for them to know that you're there for them. But really to try and get to professional help if you feel that there's that issue.
Do you have any suggestions to help youth, you know, between like student age, 18 to 25? Do you have any suggestions to help them eat healthier, you know, make them feel better about themselves when they're on the go, like on the way to school, on the way to work, you know, that sort of thing?
All those Tim Martins and like McDonald's. Like,
Well, that's it too, right? Sometimes it's like, especially at our age, it's convenience eating. So sometimes things happen that we don't have control over. So, you know, I guess, do you have anything you can suggest about that?
Well, you know, the first thing I would suggest is to eat. Make sure you eat.
That's a good one.
Right, Hogan?
I always like...
Like you're saying, he's so hungry. So it's just to, you know, to take a little bit of time to take care of yourself. You know that you're important. You have to take care of yourself. And eating is one of the ways of taking care of yourself, you know. So make the time to have your 3 meals. Make the time to bring a snack if you're hungry. And if you eat out, I mean, that's fine too. You know, there are choices out there. There are different choices. So eating on the run happens. You could eat out, and then, but it'd be nice to try and balance it with some home-cooked food. Try and, you know, fix some easy foods for you, something easy to make that you could bring. So take care of yourself.
I will.
do you have anything else to say before we take a commercial break?
That's it, I think. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you. That's all the time we have. Thanks again for Chantal for coming on the show. We'll be back with more Exposed after the break.